Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how you can use visual text network analysis, data science and GPT-3 AI for self-reflection so that in the end you get a graph that is made from your diary, for example, that looks something like this, where you have the main terms that you're talking about, all the concepts that seem important to you. You see what patterns come up in your thoughts and how they connect to one another. And that can be especially useful if you separate your diary, for example, into positive and negative ones, because this one is, for example, the graph of my positive experiences throughout my days over a period of time. And I can see that body practice, for example, here was an important element for me to feel good. And if you have a different graph of your negative experiences, you can also see what was negative. And this can provide you a very nice, actionable insight on how you can also change your life to make it more fulfilling and interesting for yourself. So if you're interested, keep watching. I'll show you how it works. This will be a brief introduction. We have another longer video where I explain everything in detail. So I will leave a link to that video in the comment to this video below in the description. But here is just a quick overview of how it works. So first of all, in infranodus, you can add any text through the editor inside, or you can also import it from external sources. Here we have different graphs which I use for my diary. So for example, I have one graph which are diaries of what was good and another one of what was bad. And this is a good way to start. I also actually use, I make like a third one of the things I want to transform and improve, and things that make my soul happy, right? So you can also use much more. But here I will just use these two examples. For example, if we're on the good graph now here, we have a visualization of the main ideas that tend to come up in my diary when I'm writing what good things happened throughout the day. And as you can see, the way it works is that it visualizes the concepts as the nodes and the co-occurrences are the connections. So if I use the concepts in the same context, like I'm saying that the body practice happened today and it felt good, it's going to be closer to each other on the graph and it's going to have the same color. So this graph is a representation of my thoughts when I was writing about my experiences. And I can quickly see already what makes me feel good. You know, body practice movement here from the graph. Good stuff, practical, so I've done some practical things, and here, forest, nature, enjoy. And you can use GPT-3 AI to interpret those clusters, so you have those clusters here indicated with specific colors. In the analytics panel, you can interpret them yourself, or you can turn this on, or also click this button here, and then it will send those clusters to GPT-3 AI, and it will interpret for you what those good things that happened throughout the day were. And that's like a very useful tool because you can very quickly see, here more of them, what makes you feel good. Financial stuff, in my case, it was 3 years ago. It was happening during COVID. This is why. I will get back to that later. Spiritual movement stuff, nature, exercise, social connections, family affairs, relaxation time. So I have a direct feedback on what makes me feel good. And also what's interesting in this situation is that it's like a mirror that you look into yourself, right? After a period of time, after you've been writing it for several days. And for example, for me, I see that financial infrastructure is actually at the first place. It's not so far from spiritual movement and body, which has 14% of importance, and here it's 16%, but still it's quite big. And so for me, it would be very interesting to ask myself, why was it so important? Does it have to be so important? So this is already how you can start modifying your behavior by looking into this mirror of the things that are positive and asking yourself, is there anything that you can change? So if I feel like I want to change that, I will say that financial stuff are too important. So I'm going to write down here that maybe I've been thinking too much about finances and I would like to talk to myself about that and see if that can be changed or if that's really necessary, right? Then there are other stuff here. If you watch the other longer video, you will see other workflows that you can use to explore this graph. Then you also have gap insights, which is pretty interesting because it shows you what things you've been thinking about in the positive context, but you didn't connect. And for example, here I have family affairs and relaxation time. And if I select those two, you will see that we have one cluster on doing family stuff and another one on relaxing. And I've been using them in different contexts. How it works is that it identifies clusters of concepts that I'm mentioning in the same text and shows the gap between two clusters that could be better connected. In this case, it's relaxation and family affairs. So maybe that means for me that what if I relax with my family, for instance, right? And then I get to spend time with my family, but also I relax at the same time. If you want, you can also send this cluster, this structural gap actually to GPT-3 AI by clicking this button here, AI Insight Question, and then it opens this helper. And then what happens is that GPT-3 AI generates an interesting research question for you, like a research question in the sense of asking yourself what you could do to connect those ideas together. And here it says, what is the effect of riding a car on human-father relations and how this compared to the quality of time spent making interesting conversations in a nice place with a lot of fresh air. So great idea, actually. Take a road trip with your father. Like this, you get to spend time together and you also enjoy some nice places along the way. So as you can see, the AI in this case is being used to recommend to us how we can make our lives more interesting, but based on the discrepancy, the gap that we discovered. So this is a really, really interesting feature. I encourage you to use it. It's great. And then you can also regenerate more gaps here and find more gaps, reveal more gaps. So for example, here one on practical affairs and financial stuff. Then you have more here on financial stuff and nature exercise. So maybe you can, I don't know, do accounting in nature. Does it work? I don't know, but that could be an interesting idea. And so on. Then you have the discourse entrance point. So we reset this graph here. The discourse entrance point also show interesting, not so obvious concepts that you could use to create an entrance into the positive things in your life. And here, if you click generate content, it's going to generate an idea that could maybe help you implement it into real life. And here it's talking about a business idea, actually starting an online marketplace where people can practice making interesting ideas and movements in order to enjoy a startup market. So basically a marketplace for interesting ideas. Okay, that can be good, but also movement. So maybe it's like chess boxing, but you do fitness and HIIT workout, but at the same time also maybe pitch business ideas in between or something like this. I don't know, but it could be like a very interesting way to think how you can connect this, all this different stuff that make you feel good in a new way. So this is the positive things, right? And then we can go to the negative stuff and perform the same sort of analysis on them. I click on what's bad graph, and it visualizes to me the things that I was writing when I was feeling like what was bad that was happening throughout the day, what didn't work so much. Right, here is the visualization of this stuff, and it shows you some patterns that tend to come up when you've been thinking that things were not so good. So here it's practical stuff and time, obviously. I can also use GPT-3 AI to interpret this for me, and it's going to generate some topics. So I can see that things that made me feel not so good were related to time management. Here, lack of creative expression, I can imagine, lack of fresh air and nature, and lack of mindfulness, right? So I know directly that if I increase the time that I give to all those things, I will feel better. But time is an issue, so I also need to manage it better. So as you can see, very quickly, I had an insight into my own personality and generated some interesting ideas of how I can improve it. Like I said, try it out on infranodus.com for your own data. You can import your Evernote notes or some ideas. It doesn't have to be diary. Maybe it's just some ideas you're having. It can also be your dreams. And if you would like to know a little bit more about the workflow, I leave a link to a longer video below, and it explains in a little bit more detail every step that you can make and how you do it so that you can understand the practicalities of it better. Let me know how it works in the comments to this video or by contacting us through the support portal. Thank you. I hope you enjoy this self-analysis and self-reflection workflow.